Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome to 2025. Feels like it's been forever since we've done this. We haven't had 2 weeks off in God, I can't remember how long.
From the podcast. We have not been off work. Well,
Oh,
I have
well,
not. I have not been off work for 2 weeks. I had a 5 day stretch off.
wasn't it? I thought it was 6.
It was five,
Oh, okay,
five
close
full
enough.
day, 5 full days off, and then I went back on the sixth day.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Daniel is recovering from surgery.
Very stubbornly. I am not supposed to be doing stuff for 6 weeks, even though I feel better. And I'm doing good. I'm not doing heavy lifting and shit like. I'm trying to behave and get the kids to do stuff as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's we've still got like 5 weeks to go. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's why you've been seeing a lot more of my face on TikTok and stuff. It's not that Michelle's not doing stuff; it's just she's working a lot, and
I get my
I'm
shit
not.
kicked at work.
Which is why you had to sleep today. She's like, I'm just gonna go lay down. I'm just gonna go warm up. And then
I'm
I'm gonna come
cold.
out. I'm gonna come out and just hang out on the couch. Yeah, like 3 hours later.
Shut up.
Well,
Shut up.
I purposely pushed back your alarm and didn't go wake her up, so it was fine. She needs a break too. But anyway,
I'll just sign up for surgery next.
just going tit for tat.
I mean, that's kind of how it feels. That's
Yeah,
kind of how it feels.
yeah. So anyway, a lot has happened project wise in the last couple weeks.
Mhm.
And we have a lot in store for this year. I'm really feeling that this is going to be the year of the little guys because there's a lot more of us now that not that we started this, but like we're starting to network with other people who are spread out across the country
Mhm.
and they are very much espousing the same concerns, same issues, all of that. So we're kind of starting to just the sound here, sorry. Um, we're all starting to realize, hey, we've all got the same problems, and we all generally agree on the stuff that needs to be changed. Well, now we all know who each other is and where we are, and can actually start pushing back and
Well,
start seeing some local changes.
we're also starting to hear feedback from people that we like personally know who are starting the conversations of, maybe I shouldn't say that, or
Hmm.
why do I do this?
Yeah.
We had somebody come up to, I can't remember which one of us it was, and they were like, I'm rethinking like everything that I do on shift because
Hmm.
I was a shitty person. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
get it.
Which and again, we have to clarify. It's not that we think we're like the paragons of EMS. Just
Oh, hell no.
we're working through this shit too,
Mhm.
and realizing that hey, sometimes some of the things that even we did that we thought that we felt are just not sustainable for the rest of our career. I've been that salty asshole, who got in fights all the time. Maybe that's why nobody wants to fight with me anymore. Anyway,
Well,
but uh, it's to me personally, that's the most rewarding feedback from people is, hey, you know what? Like, you guys are kind of giving me a little bit of hope. You're making me think about how I do things or my attitude on things. Like, not, oh, you shamed me or no, like you're thinking for yourself. You're taking the initiative to address yourself for yourself, and that's what we fucking want.
just to start the conversation.
Yeah, like we're not going to have a one size fits all solution to shit for you. Like
No.
you have to figure that out. We're trying to give you all the tools. We're trying to show you what we've learned, how we've learned it, and where we learned it, and you can go figure it out too. And then like as you're figuring your shit out, then if we're all doing that together, then we can actually start seeing some things happen. So I'm
Well,
excited about that.
and I want to throw out there too. We've never said that you can't complain.
Yeah, that was funny.
We've never said that you can't complain about getting your shit kicked, about, hating certain
Yeah.
frequent flyers. It's how you treat them in the heat of the moment.
Hmm.
Did I complain about my shift yesterday? Hell yeah. I got my shit rocked. But all of county got their shit rocked because there was a bomb threat on the highway. So the highway
Yeah.
was shut down for like, 30 miles. So you couldn't get anywhere conveniently. Um,
I still don't believe that there was nothing there. I'm sorry. I just
yeah.
fucking don't. Like, this
No.
fucking bullshit. You
Well,
see the article and hear what happened. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't buy it.
and they took it too seriously, and the highway was shut down for like 3 or 4 hours. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it for SWAT to deploy and wanna have blood on standby, there was something. There
Yeah,
was
there was something
something.
going on. But anyway,
Anyways.
but no, I'm really optimistic about this year. Like, all the changes that we want to see happen in EMS are going to take fucking years. Like, this is not something that is going to turn around overnight. But
Mhm,
what I'm really excited to see, and I think we're going to start seeing it this year. I really think that the good old boy system is going to start to feel a little pressure.
mhm.
They're going to start to we're you're kind of, to use the old expression, we're putting the screws to them. And I think that they're going to see that their standard of leadership doesn't work anymore. There's a new standard of leadership. There's a new standard of patient focused policies that some places are doing here and there. Like, it's not like it's non existent, but it's not the norm. So I think we're going to start to see that become the norm. We're going to start to see that be what's normalized as okay, as good, as healthy, and what we should be doing. And I think there's going to be we're going to start to see some accountability for their abuse of authority and abuse of funds. It's got to happen. And I'm not saying this like because of the current era of politics in the U.S. Just I don't know. Like, the more people we talk to and the more feedback we get, like,
Well, you also
it's
have
gonna happen.
and you also have the turnover that we've been talking about, but it's becoming more prevalent. The turnover of the older providers retiring, the newer generation coming up,
Hmm.
you
Which
know,
we're gonna
the
talk about that a
the
little bit.
yeah, the differences in the generations and how it's kind of like with parenting. We don't want to parent how our parents parented us,
Yeah,
so we're going to change. It's going to
yeah.
be kind of the same thing with leadership, with patient, but also like with patient focused medicine and policies and stuff. It's excuse me, evidence based medicine.
Well, and not just in all of this is evidence based.
Hmm.
Like, the evidence of our how leadership should be run. There's evidence sitting out there. There's studies in place. There's so much material out there to show, hey, this is not sustainable what we're doing. Here's what we should be doing instead. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a good year. Um, as far as what we're gonna offer to you guys this year, of course, we're still gonna do the weekly episodes just like we've been doing. I'm hoping that we will be able to consistently beef up the TikTok content slash Instagram, depending on how things go,
This month.
politically.
Yeah.
Um, and so that we're not just cycling out clips of the show, which we love the feedback that we get from you guys, and that's done well.
Hmm.
But I do also want some unique stuff on there as well that you can't find anywhere else. So we're gonna do more short form content. We're working on a roundtable TikTok live, or Instagram live, wherever can whatever's alive then. But we're trying to bring together some of these quote little guys, some of the other names that aren't part of a larger organization, other than themselves and whatever they're working on, to start these conversations, to start showing people, hey, like, we can rally together, we can band together and see improvement in our culture and in EMS as a whole. We do have some interviews we're wanting to do. I'm trying to. That's still just technically going to be difficult. Just with how our equipment is set up and everything. So we're working on that, but all of that is coming and actually becoming concrete now, not just an idea. So it's going to be a good year.
Hmm. It's
I'm
going to be a
excited about
busy
it.
year.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, um, as far as what we're going to talk about today, and I wanted to keep it pretty simple. Um, we're all tired. Everybody's tired. It's been a long holiday season. But something that's come up in conversations a good bit recently with people is two things that I think are actually kind of intertwined, and that is what's called burnout. And I don't like that particular term, and we'll get into that a little bit, but also personal defense, self-defense of first responders. And there's some things that have become bigger and bigger issues that we need to deal with. So I kind of want to unpack that a little bit and have a discussion about it. You and I talked about it some, but
Mhm.
um, we haven't seen each other a lot the past couple of days, so we're trying.
Well, and we also, if you haven't listened to it yet, want to refer you back to our, I think it was like the 5th episode that we ever did, to fight or not to fight.
Yes.
That was a good one too, with self-defense and everything else.
And that is on YouTube now as well. And I'm
Yes.
sorry I've gotten a little lax in the throwback episodes. They will be more consistent again, I promise.
Now he's home for 6 weeks.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are gonna be a little more consistent now. Um, but kind of broaching the self-defense thing, I saw an article recently about a new law in Florida called the Halo Law. And it's prompted some interesting discussion, but the gist of it is that unless you are directly involved in the scene, you're the patient, you're caregiver, you're, at the scene of a car wreck, you're a victim or whatever. Unless you're in one of those people, in one of those categories of people that needs to be on the scene, you need to maintain a minimum of 25-foot distance between yourself and first responders. And if you don't, you can be subject to arrest and fines and all that stuff, which I think is kind of interesting.
Mhm.
I we pushed out some discussion on Discord about it, and the response was interesting, and I liked it because there was a lot of color to it, and one of your really good friends kind of pointed out like, yeah, there's cons to this, but we need to do something because
Mhm.
it's crazy as shit out here.
Mhm. I mean, she's in a wild area. She's in a wild area,
she,
and
she
I
down there with
mean,
them Florida men and then all them gators.
well, and I mean, how many times now referring back to cardiac arrest again? Or even car accidents, but classically think of the, you know, big events or even my respiratory patient yesterday. There were 15 family members on scene,
Mhm.
3 firefighters. Granted, I needed their hands at that point because it was just me for a little while, but like the family members were poor historians. They were getting in the
No
way.
way.
They were so awful. But poor
Never heard of
poor
that before.
historians, they were, arguing with the patient when I'm trying to communicate. And sure, I can tell them to get out of the room until I'm blue in the face, but unless there's law enforcement on scene or some way to enforce it. Now, it ended up not being like a huge deal. But how many times have we been on cardiac arrest where the family, gets worked up and upset
Yeah,
that you are either not working it or you decide that you're going to terminate resuscitation. And then they get worked up. Now, a lot of the time, services already have law enforcement coming or they're there, whatever. But if they legally can't fine or arrest or detain or, have
yeah,
legal cause to enforce space between the crew and everything else, it can get violent. And how often they send more than one, maybe two cops to something and you may have 30 people on scene.
yeah,
I worked
yeah.
one arrest that there were like 40 people between family,
Sh-
friends, children, animals, neighbors, and I had 2 cops. 2 cops and me waiting for the corner.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
No, it's not. Well, and in that case too, because we're not cops, so we don't know all the nuances of their job the way that we know the nuances of our job,
Mhm,
and they don't. Um, so it's very easy for us to be like, "Oh my God, this person's getting in my way. Like, get them out of here."
mhm.
When they have to think through, like, "Hey, do I have, just cause, probable cause, whatnot? Do you actually lay hands on this person to get them out of here?"
Well, and I've
And
also found that changes per county.
it does,
So,
it
like,
does.
there was one county that you and I worked for that, man, in certain areas, the cops, man, if you told them that you needed help getting a psych patient, they would throw down at the drop of a hat. They're like, "Let's go." And then there was
Yeah,
another county that we worked for that literally, even if the patient was threatening violence, literally they would look at it and be like, "This is a medical complaint. You guys have to go hands on with the patient first, and then if they like swing at you, then we can step in because like it's
yeah,
not a legal thing here."
yeah,
And I mean, that was literally 2 counties butted up to each other.
yeah. So, I mean, and that inconsistency is a huge problem.
Yeah.
And again, I understand. the autonomy of different agencies and so forth. Like, I'm not saying I'm not saying there has to be a federal mandate, like a line by line explicitly, like, okay, law enforcement has to intervene in X, Y, and Z and da 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 da. But we need something a little bit more to protect us, because most of us don't have bulletproof vests available, on command. We're not armed, at least not supposed to be armed. Um, some of us have self-defense training, but some of us don't. Like,
Mhm.
some people, even if they had the training, there's no way they could hold up in a fight. Like, it's just such a sticky situation that we're not equipped to handle. And yes, you need to learn de-escalation tactics. You need to learn, quote, verbal judo to, handle these situations so that you can, ultimately go home. That's ultimately what we care about. And maybe body cams are the next step for us. Like, I don't like that idea. I really don't. But it may come down to that, because without
It's
some kind of proof, then it's a he said, she said, and that's where a lot of these lawsuits just fucking fall apart, because nobody's got any evidence of what was actually said and done.
well, and I've heard again, there are pros and cons, especially in the medical field. The biggest thing that I've heard as a con is, how are you gonna maintain HIPAA?
Which I can see, if you have a system in place for where and how to offload those videos,
Mhm,
because HIPAA is kind of part of some of the stuff we're working on,
mhm,
in a separate venture. As long as you have a proper place to collect and store and handle that data that is secure, that is monitored, that is HIPAA compliant, okay, cool. Because, I mean, law enforcement has their body cams on when they're on scenes with us, and that's not a problem.
mhm,
It's not that video recording in and of itself is an issue. It's what happens to that video
mhm.
afterwards. That's really where the issue lies.
Well, so I was talking to somebody, what would be really cool, and I know it kinda has to do with the project that we're talking about later on, but what would be really cool is with the body cam, I was talking to somebody about it, and basically their question to me was, "Well, if we're recording all patients and all interventions, where does that leave charting? Like, physical charting? If you have a literal, like, if you could guarantee it's accurately
Yeah.
time-stamped, but, like, active timestamp, or is there a way to connect the body cam with the chart where as you're speaking, like AI automatically uploads it into your activity log and narrative and all that kind of stuff. So kind of like the doctor's dictation,
Hmm.
it's actively going. But also, like yesterday with I had a respiratory patient that was in active respiratory failure, refusing RSI. Well, we get to the hospital and the doc is like, well, she was altered. I'm like, but she's not. And then it
Yeah.
turned into a he said, she said, kind of like what he's
Yeah.
talking about. Ultimately, they decided that the patient was in their right mind because,
No way.
oh my God, I did,
Ah!
I did my job.
Oh
But
shit.
point being, if, there's a way to share this information either ahead of
Hmm.
time with the hospital or whatever, body cams and AI are definitely an interesting supplement, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, AI is going to become a part of everything.
I mean, it's already
And
helping with schooling.
yeah, we're gonna see it in EMS. Spoilers. Anyway,
Hush.
I ain't saying nothing. I ain't saying nothing. But I think there's a couple things. A, we're not used to the idea. That's the most common hurdle that you're gonna have to get over with the subject of body cams, is we're not used to it. And if there's one thing we've seen in EMS throughout our careers, is medics and EMTs don't like change.
Which
We
is
don't like it.
which is hilarious because our jobs are based off of a ever-changing environment.
Yes, yes,
We're
but
we're
but that's
creatures
also why
we're creatures of habit of the chaos.
but that's also why we have a lot of agencies that are still stuck in the Stone Age, either with treatment pathways or leadership practices, so on and so forth, because they don't like the change. And they'll find excuses that sound good, that sound altruistic and happy, and all of this, to say why we're not doing the thing that everybody else has figured out is good medicine. So, but I think that's going to be our first hurdle is people just getting used to it, people becoming comfortable with it.
Well, and being held accountable for their bad fucking behavior. That's
Oh,
most of the people that I hear pushing back on body cams is literally, "Oh, well, I can't cuss. Oh, well, I can't tell the patient off," or, "Oh, I can't do
yeah,
this." It's like, then do your job.
yeah.
You can mom I do it. You can mom a patient that is being hateful and disrespectful without being
Hmm.
hateful and disrespectful back. Like
Yeah.
there is a way to do it.
Well, and I've struggled with like dash cams. Like not the forward facing dash cams because totally fine with that, but the rear facing dash cams, especially when audio is being recorded in the front of the truck.
You don't want to be caught picking your nose while driving.
I mean, I do it anyway. Like I'll be like, oh, look at this. But um but because in the conflict for me there is in that space we're not rendering patient care in the cab. If you are, there's some fucked up shit going on. But it's kind of like that's our space.
Mhm.
Like when I was on the truck, like that was kind of sacred space. Like I didn't like knowing that I couldn't speak freely. And even though places claimed like, oh well, we only check the video if there's a problem. Now, some of you, yes, some places I believe that 100%, but there's some of you motherfuckers, I didn't believe it for a fucking second, and saw instances where it was actually proven that that was a lie and that the dash cams were being watched.
There
And
was
yeah, I don't. So
well, and there was one place that I was told, don't know if it's true, but I was told by several people that dispatch was able to access the body camera, like, if you were at the hospital for
dash
too
cam,
long. Huh?
you said body cam, the dash cam,
Oh, the dash cam,
yeah,
sorry, not the body cam. That dispatch was able to access the front cab to see if y'all were sitting, like, at the hospital goofing off, like, in the truck, if you had been sitting there for too long, and, like,
yeah.
that's not okay.
There's a
That's like a toxic boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah, there's a difference between accountability
Mhm,
and legal stalking.
mhm.
And I think we need to be careful with that. Now, that being said, um, I think that if we did body cams, and this has been an evolution for me. Like this is not something that I've felt super comfortable either way on for a long time. But I think that if we did go to body cams, I think that there would be a lot of accountability, both for behavior and also for patient care.
Mhm.
And I think I understand that nothing goes according to plan on a call. You're never going to know all the exact as far nothing is ever going to go exactly the way it's supposed to.
Mhm.
Even the most fluid cardiac arrest. Okay, your times may be perfect, but chances are you're going to have 30 to 60 seconds of error just depending on how many people you have and the situation and resources available. Like you're gonna have fluidity. There's times where I'll go back and look at the time between interventions and I'm like, God, what took me so fucking long? Like, but I was busy during the call. Like I wasn't just sitting dicking around. Like,
But the body cam is gonna show that. Like, it's gonna show whether you're sitting there staring at somebody,
yeah.
like, there was one crew that we knew that watched a patient have a 7-minute VFib seizure and didn't and there were no interventions done, like, nothing at all.
Yeah.
No airway, no
Yeah.
literally anything. So you're gonna have accountability like that, but then you're also going to be able to quantify why a call went to shit.
Yeah.
Every single thing went wrong, it's you and one other person, a firefighter that's not an EMT or, whatever the case may be. But just like with how everybody writes charts, there would have to be some understanding that not everybody runs the same call the same way twice.
And I think ultimately it would actually be a good thing because it would increase like self-consciousness of what you're doing. It would increase your awareness for, hey, I need to be on my game because I do have accountability. In a way, the monitor kind of is that accountability on a very basic level. The monitor is going to tattle on you if you were really paying attention to the patient's rhythm or not.
Mhm.
Like it's going to track that. So we already dip our toes into it a little bit. We're just not used to the totality of audio video recording for the entire call.
Well, and where I mean, I am not, I guess, skittish of it because I know I try my best on every call. But there have been calls in the past where my partner has been a hindrance on a call. And if that's on video, it's like it doesn't turn into a he said, she said. I don't have to write that person up. I just have to say, go look at the fucking call. Why
Yeah.
are you asking
Yeah.
my AFib RVR to rate a 240? Have you seen your electrophysiologist? I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. You have a patient where you're palpating an odd number diastolic pressure. Guess what? It's on fucking video. It's not dick measuring at this
I
point. It's
I
you're
had an
retarded.
excellent teacher. I got sensitive fingers.
I have skills.
The boy got all there is, all of it.
Stop using that word. Stop using that word.
Why, it's not rad?
Stop. It's Gucci. You're welcome. Shut up. He doesn't like that word.
I hate that word.
Anyways,
It's a brand, nothing else. Anyway.
point being, with the accountability, it's truly going to hold people accountable, not just for like bad behavior, using and abusing patients, but it's like, okay, why was there a hindrance on this call? It's going to make everything um
Out in the
it's
open.
it out in the open. I was looking for the word.
Yeah.
My brain's slow.
Yeah.
Transparent is the word I was looking for.
Well, and look at law enforcement over the years, because I will guarantee you that when body cams for law enforcement first became a thing, they dealt with the exact same shit. They had the exact same pushback, the exact same kind of issues. And guess what? Now it's everyday life. Like it's so normalized into what they do that everyone expects it. And we've seen, yes, it can be damning, but it can also save your ass.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it is going to breed consistency if it's used appropriately.
Well, and how often do we see cops on body cams cussing? It's not like you can't
Mm-hmm.
be your normal self. If you have a patient that's cussing and they're like, I don't
Yeah.
care if you say it and you like make a dirty joke. Like if they're one of
Yeah.
the patients that are like, I need to joke to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not like it's going to get you in trouble.
No.
It's doing it appropriately. But I also wonder if it'll help with, it's one thing to track documentation of like critical calls, but doing the body cam and like seeing what the provider emotionally went through might help curb the quote unquote burnout. Being able to see the intensity of the call. Because
Yeah.
we can talk about, oh, I had a respiratory patient that needed RSI. It's like, okay, cool. That's very like there. Or, oh, I worked a cardiac arrest or, a traffic accident.
Yeah.
But the actual like noises and intensity, and you don't have enough resources, and just the craziness of it is also going to be easier to quantify.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not advocating for body cameras. We're not saying, oh, we need to do this. I think it's more of just, I think it's going to happen. I think we're seeing cameras encroaching further and further and further into healthcare and emergency healthcare.
Mhm.
I think it's inevitable, and we either need to be prepared for it or have a better solution. Like if there's a better solution out there, cool. Like let's do that. Like let the capitalist machine do its thing. Like let's find another solution. But I think that if it does come, I used to push back hard on it. And it's not that I was someone who was like, trying to hide shit, trying to be deceitful, but like
I don't like feeling like I'm being watched. I get
I
it.
don't. And now I can look back and realize, subliminally, I no, I wasn't a raging dick to every single person. But there, like we've talked about before, there were times where I did go a little overboard, and I was culpable. Maybe not for like actually starting a fight with a patient, but like, just in general not helping that person's situation. So I think that I'm at peace with it now. If they sent out an email tomorrow and said, "Hey, guess what? You guys are getting body cameras. Suck it up. This is what you got to do." Okay, cool. Like it's fine.
I'm sorry.
What?
From the side, all I can see is the redness in your eyes, and I can just picture you with like red eyes, like asking a patient if you wanted to like fist fight.
Oh my
Oh, it's
god.
pretty bad underneath.
Yeah, like it's. I
Which
probably need to go, ask a doctor about it or something. But
why it takes time for wounds
I
to
don't know.
heal. I mean, that's basically what it is.
I guess so. Yeah.
If
Sucks.
it's not better by 6 weeks, I would be concerned.
Sucks. Sucks.
Sucks.
But so, and I think there's actually a connection here in the topic on the subject of burnout and self-defense. Now, we've talked before. I reference the YouTuber ZDoggMD, who put out a video, and we've put this out there before, but I will circulate it again. His video on the difference between moral injury and burnout. But I think in prepping for this, and in discussions that we've had recently with people, or I mean, not so much discussions, but just comment engagement from people on TikTok, I actually think that burnout and moral injury are not substitutes, but they're two separate things. We just mislabel them. We label everything as burnout
Yes.
rather than delineating between there is burnout, but
Mhm.
there's also moral injury. And where I think, and I'm literally shooting from the hip on this because it's just something I've been thinking about today. I think that what?
The screen is about to go to sleep.
Oh, it's fine. But like, I think that moral injury, as we've talked about it before, is where you have some cognitive dissonance between what you expected to see, what you feel, what your drive is to provide patient-centered care and actually help people and all these things, and it's rubbing up against the reality of abuse of 911, um, providers being shitty people, patients being shitty people. Like, there's that grading that over time, you as someone who genuinely wants to help people, genuinely wants to do good, feels just overwhelmed by that cognitive dissonance, and a lot of the effects of it can feel very similar to burnout. I would say it leans more towards compassion fatigue, uh, technically speaking.
So, I know I've referenced it, but it did just happen yesterday, and it's kind of a good example. My respiratory patient.
Mhm.
So went out, and I'm not going to go like full into detail. It's more like the emotional side of it. So went out for a respiratory patient. She was 52, but I would have bet an entire month's paycheck that she was like in her 70s. She
It do be
rode
like that sometimes.
rode hard and hung up wet. Um, sorry. Sorry. Um,
Damn.
she admits to being non-compliant with meds.
No.
She has said for year that it has been years since she's physically seen a doctor. Her family even said she only does virtual visits. So the only thing officially on her diagnosis list is COPD. She has albuterol and Duoneb at home. That's it. But you can look at her and know that there's like everything else wrong with her. So I get there. She's already given herself 10 milligrams of albuterol, 5 milligrams of Duoneb. She's sucking down on that, tripoding, like holding onto a desk, like tripoding, accessory muscle use, retractions. She doesn't look cyanotic, but room air was on the Duoneb treatment was in the 60s. Listen to her lungs, bronchi diminished. You can look at her and know. So I asked her immediately. I was like, "Have you ever been CPAP'd?" Yes, I've been BiPAP multiple times. I'm like, "Cool. Have you ever had a tube down your throat?" Fucking immediately flipped a switch, got like crazy agitated, basically yelling between like two word gasps. That she was not getting a tube down her throat. I was like, "Honey, I just need to know if it's ever happened." And she's like, "Yeah, two other times you're not doing it." So basically,
Third time's the charm.
right? So basically, throughout this entire call, on scene treatment, I finally talked her. It took like literally 10 minutes of her basically suffocating. Mind you, she was A&O times four. Like, very persistently could follow commands, A&O times four, knew what was what. Like, it, for her being so hypoxic, which having COPD, she's probably used to a certain level of hypoxia. But,
Yeah.
anyways, she was with it. She had every right to make her decision, and it basically came down to I don't always go the death route, like you're gonna die, but this was literally the time to be like, "Ma'am, you're adamantly refusing now, but if you don't let me CPAP you, you're gonna go unconscious. I'm gonna shove a tube down your throat, and you get no option because you don't have a DNI." But she finally let me CPAP her. So full respiratory protocol on scene. I don't. usually, there's always exceptions. I don't usually transport CPAP patients emergent if they are stable. She was not. Her end tidal was still 76 and her SpO2 was 85% on a PEEP of 8.
Hmm.
Um, with no improvement in lungs after all of the drugs. Anyways, all the way to the hospital, adamantly, I mean, she was head bobbing, but she could follow command. She kept her, she was able to wake up, keep her head up. She was still ANO times 4. Get to the hospital. I'm giving doc report, and he's like, she was hypoxic. She was altered. I was like, doc, no, the fuck, she's not. Like, no, she's not. Um, they were talking shit about us. We didn't do our job. The patient, to the doc's face, was adamantly refusing. And finally, they came out of the room, and I could hear the two of them talking. They were like, I guess she's mentally competent. She's going to refuse.
Oh, maybe you should have listened to us the first fucking time.
Right. But kind of what we're talking about with the cognitive dissonance is literally she met XYZ. You're going to die if you can't breathe. She was already tired. There was no improvement with CPAP. So emotionally, mentally, training wise, all of the things said XYZ RSI. Like, if you don't have a DNR and no good thing. And also with her story, she's like, oh, I've been short of breath and feeling ill for a week. But you could tell she was one of those people, especially the fact that she's been intubated 2 other times and has been BiPAP multiple times. Why the fuck are you waiting a week to call me? Even earlier in the day, the family was like, "Oh, she's been like this for like 4 hours." I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
"Why didn't you call me when this first started?" So like with the cognitive dissonance, like you just expect people to want to live. Even when I told her like you're gonna die or you're gonna go unresponsive and I'm gonna shove this tube down your throat whether you want to or not. And she still was just basically like, "Let me die." It's like, then why'd you call? Like, why did you call me? Why did you call me now?
Like, I know you're supposed to, throw in the whole, explain the negative effects of the patient up to and including death. If I'm whipping out the death card, and same for you, if we're whipping out the death card,
It's
you're
pretty
probably
bad.
gonna fucking die.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Now, I'm shook that she maintained it. There were 3 firefighters on scene, another paramedic, and a very competent EMT that all witnessed the same thing. This ma'am stayed ANO times 4
Mm-hmm.
throughout the entire patient contact. Even at the hospital, docs deemed her mentally competent. But, excuse me, as I hiccup. But this is the cognitive dissonance that you're talking about. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, we have XYZ. The whole purpose is to save lives. This person, literally, I can, in
Mm-hmm.
theory, fix, not really fix, but
Yeah.
protect their airway and do something because she is exhausted. And she's just like, no, I don't want to die, but like at the same time, you're not going to tube me. And it's just like, what?
Yeah.
And then you're emotionally like, I didn't so much care because I knew at the hospital that she's going to get tired. She's going to go unresponsive at some point. That she's going to get tubed. Guess what? That's exactly what happened.
No way.
But the crew and the firefighters, when I talked to them, they were so angry. And how often do we see that with our frequent
Mm-hmm.
flyers or the chronically sick patients that won't take care of themselves? It's like, well, I fixed you a week ago. Why am I
Yeah.
back out here? Oh, well, I haven't been taking my meds. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So I think,
Sorry.
I think, and I want to word this carefully because I don't want, I mean, I'll probably get crucified for it no matter what, but I'm going to go out on the limb to say that because we talked about, moral injury and burnout are 2 different things that coexist.
Hmm.
Moral injury, I would say, is a side effect of people who are well intended experiencing compassion fatigue and cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Burnout, I would argue, is more rooted in emotional dysregulation. It's allowing things to live rent free in your head and not actually handling it. And that is something that, and it's not like you're a bad person if you experience that, but that's a part of maturing and something that maybe you should be proactively in therapy for. I mean, you should be in therapy for moral injury as well, but a lot of times when I see people who are, the classic burnout, they're getting worked up over shit because they're like, well, why didn't this person listen to me? Why didn't they do this? Why did they inconvenience me because of this? Why am I having to go and do all of this and this and this? Why am I experiencing this? And it's a lot of I. and but it's not it's because of, you're irritated, you're inconvenienced, you feel like someone's ignoring you, like they're insulting you, and
I was
it's
about
very
to s
ego rooted
I was about to say,
ultimately.
I think burnout could probably be summed up into one word, anger or irritability. Because well, but think about it. All the stuff that you just described,
Hmm.
but also think about the people that make being burned out their identity. They're very
Yes.
they're angry. They take things personally, like literally everything personally. I could have
Hmm.
taken that entire patient contact yesterday personal. Now, was I pissed at the doc? Yes, but for a different reason. When I was with one service, this one particular doc literally took my word at face value, and then
Hmm.
yesterday he was second guessing, and I'm like, change a uniform doesn't change my education. So
Right.
I I was annoyed at that, but I also didn't take it to heart and carry it with me the rest of the day. I went about my business, and the docs were, proved
Yeah.
wrong in theory. But the people that make burnout their identity, what are they? They're angry. They're
Hmm.
irritable. They take things personally. Um,
They're emotionally dysfunctional.
mhm.
And again, it's not saying like, oh, you're this god awful horrible person if you're burned out. Like, it's a natural human series of events,
Mhm.
but it's something that you are responsible for. You're responsible for how you respond to your moral injury as well. Like, there's no point in this where you're a victim. There's no point in this where you don't have the ability to affect some change in your life about it. And especially with burnout, people that hold on to shit so bad. Like, why does it matter? Like, why do you care so much that your entire mental well-being is being dragged down by these events that ultimately have nothing to do with you? Like, how these patients live their lives, it has nothing to do with you. Even if they're like being condescending to you, like, they just fucking met you. Like, they don't actually know you. It's not like they woke up that morning like, I'm gonna go piss off that motherfucker tonight, like at 3 a.m. for toe pain. But like, we internalize and we make it all about us, and then we use that to perpetuate a victim mentality, this noble victimhood, like, woe is me, this is my cross to bear, I am the one who has to do all of these things, and look at me, and I'm so fucking sick of it.
Well, and they're the people that want to be thanked for their
Oh
service.
my god, they want the fucking discounts everywhere they fucking go, and they get butthurt about it when the cops get discounts and they don't, which, I mean, okay, that kind of sucks, but still. But so with that understanding, with that distinction between moral injury, which is rooted in a genuine desire to do well, to help people, to be of service, and burnout, which is, I'm pissed off because of this, I'm upset because of this, whatever it is.
What is that expression? It's I wish I could remember the exact quote, but it's basically you can't control anyone else around you, but you can control how you respond to them. So like,
That right there, that part.
yeah. So you can have the cognitive dissonance, like my patient who was basically choosing to die and conflicting with what I know needs to happen, and the em- not the compassion fatigue. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, if I'm going to be nice to you, but you're going to basically tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about. It gets exhausting.
Hmm.
But I didn't change my behavior towards her. So you have the moral injury versus the anger that honestly, I would argue the burnout and just the general anger and noble victimhood and wanting to be thanked for your service at 2 o'clock in the morning for toe pain instigates aggression on scene.
It does. And I like, no, I'm not Buddhist. I am not well versed in Buddhist beliefs and whatnot, but something that, the way someone described emotion to me, and kind of I guess you could say the Buddhist approach to emotion, to managing trauma and things that piss you off and all these exterior things, is look at it like a river. If you're standing by a river and you're trying to stop the water, you're trying to reach in and grab the water and getting pissed off about it, there's no end to that. Like, you're always going to get pissed off because you're never going to fucking stop it. Whereas if you can just allow those thoughts and feelings to pass through you, then you're free from having to be burdened by that shit. You can and yes, you may experience anger, you may experience frustration, but then just let it go. Your life is so much bigger than that. There's so much more important shit in life than being pissed off at a patient who you don't actually know, who has no impact in your life, who somehow inconvenienced you. Like, if you really don't like the schedule where you work, go find a different fucking job. Like, or a different service. Go to a different place that has a better schedule so you're not woken up in the middle of the night for dumb shit. Like, take some responsibility for this shit and don't take it out on patients, because what happens is these people that are burnout, they walk into scenes and they're pissed off and they're just shoving that energy to everybody around them, and it starts fights. Of course the patients are going to be pissed off. You can walk in and just be like, so what's the emergency tonight? I'm sorry, that would piss me the fuck off too. Like, if you walked in with that kind of attitude, by God, you better believe I'm going to be pissed off at you. There's some of you people that walk onto scenes like that I run calls with. People who walk in with that attitude, who roll their eyes when they're getting a report about the patient, and they walk in with that attitude, and you wonder why the patient doesn't want to talk to you, why they don't want to work with you, why they're irritable. It's not fucking hard. Don't take it out on them. Deal with your shit.
Well, I mean, I think it was like 1 or 2 o'clock this morning. We were called out. The whole thing was bullshit. But basically, long story short, dad had called EMS, like as he was leaving work for mom and baby. Baby basically, the on-call pediatrician suspected a UTI. So we were called out, we get on scene, and I easily could have walked on scene, saw that baby that was not flushing, she was behaving normally, vital signs were fine, looked at the parents and been, why the fuck didn't you just take her in your own car? This does not require an ambulance. Which there is there is a discussion where I think we should be able to have those genuine conversations with people, but not aggressively.
Genuine
It's
educational
yeah,
conversations.
there's a way to
Yeah.
have, just like with diabetics, especially newer diabetics. There's a way to have an educational conversation without being belittling, demoralizing, hateful, etc. So I could have walked on that scene and been like, "Why the fuck did you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning when you could have taken this?" But I could tell that the mom has probably gotten shit for this before, because as soon as I got on the ambulance, the first thing out of her fucking mouth to me was, "Well, her doctor said that she needs to go to the ER." I literally hadn't said anything. I was like, "Oh, oh, okay. I just need to
Mhm.
know what's going on and get some vitals." She immediately chilled out.
Yeah.
Versus if I had come at her and be like, "Well, did your doctor say that you had to call an ambulance or just that she had to go to the ER?" Because there is a difference here. If I'd come at her like that, she was gonna get more agitated. The
Mhm.
baby the
Mhm.
baby is gonna feel that there's 10. I say baby, I think the kid was 2. So, I mean, children can feel, whatchamacallit,
Mhm.
energies in a room. The baby already didn't want to get a blood pressure taken. Maybe she gets more resistant, especially if she sees mom getting pissed. So then it just perpetuates the problem. So, like, going on excessively aggressive, whether you're educating or just because you have a stick up your ass, whether you enjoy that or not is besides the point. But you're
You're all
wanting,
freaks. Some of you have at least thought about it.
oh my god, a stick, but it's so prickly though.
I mean, some of them walk around like they got a prickly stick up their ass.
Rose bush. Any, anyways, um, it's just not okay. You can even educate like that conversation. I might, if mom wasn't already on the defensive, I might have been able to have an educational conversation with her about, hey, this doesn't need
Yeah.
to go by ambulance. But I also saw that she was already on the defensive, and having that conversation was not worth it. Just transport the patient.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You're going to get on scene, you're going to cause a fight with the patient, and then you're going to end up transporting them anyway. So then you're
Mhm.
just perpetually pissed off.
And because for better or for worse, and we can argue the ethics of it, at the end of the day, the patient has the ultimate trump card.
Hmm.
If they want to go, you have to fucking take them.
Hmm.
Like, or at least around here. I'm sure there's places that have some exceptions to that, but per the norm, at least here in the States, if the patient wants to go, you fucking take them to the hospital.
Hmm.
So why make that harder on yourself than it needs to be? And if you took a couple of minutes to build some credibility and rapport with the patient And I would do this sometimes because a lot of times, now this situation that you're recounting is different because there was some other bullshit going on, but in general, people get so impatient with new parents that call 911. And when when I was a young new parent, I had a few scares
Mhm.
with
We've
Caleb.
we've shared a couple.
Yeah, there's some shit like that even me as a trained professional knew what to do. I was still scared. I was still tore up over it. So, with these patients that were just so quick to dismiss because, we know 99% of the time it's bullshit. Taking a second to them to talk with them and be like, "Hey, I'm a parent too. I understand that you're scared. I understand you're frustrated, whatnot. Let me tell you what I look for clinically, but also like my thought processes as a parent. It's almost like magic. And again, I'm not doing this to try to get out of a transport, but a lot of times those parents will say, okay, I appreciate you talking to me like that. I think we'll be okay. I'll watch them. You've informed me of things I should be looking for. And if something happens, we'll call back or we'll go to the doctor in the morning."
Sometimes it's just some anxiety that they need to talk to a medical professional.
Yeah.
Like, not even that they're dead ass convinced that they have to go to the hospital. It's just they don't have medical knowledge and they just want somebody to
Mhm.
hear their concern and not in like a really cheesy that, "Oh, it's okay, baby," but like,
Mhm.
in a way be like, "It's okay. I
Yeah.
understand your
Yep.
anxiety." And my favorite thing to tell people when they're like, "Oh, I'm so worried about this," like, if I'm not worked up about it, you shouldn't be worked up about it. Like, if I'm worked up about it, then we can be concerned. But 99.9999% of the time, I'm not worked up over something. Um,
Yeah.
but and with the whole like walking in and getting pissed at the patient and them getting pissed at you and then just back and forth pissing match and then you end up transporting them anyways, you're after the call gonna be mad,
Yep.
especially if you don't go to therapy, don't have good coping skills, don't have a good outlet. Smoking, I'm sorry, is not going to help. Anything to calm your temporarily calming your nerves is not going to help. If you can't get rid of that anger, you're going to go into the next call, especially if it's at
Yep.
4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
You're going to go into the next call already pissed off, probably more pissed off than the original call, especially if it's some dumb shit, and then you're just going to perpetuate the problem.
Yep. It's when you walk in and you act pissed off and you make yourself the victim. That's another thing I hear all the time is, "Oh, well, we're EMS. We never sleep. We never eat. We never get." Yes, you fucking do.
I prioritize eating and peeing like nobody's business.
But it's and even if you have shitty days where you don't get to do that, guess what? The patient doesn't fucking care.
Mm-mm.
Nobody else on scene gives a damn. And all you're doing is making yourself look like a weak victim. That's all you're doing. That's the only thing you're contributing to that situation. They don't fucking care. So instead of acting like an idiot and emotionally antagonizing people, even if you're not actually saying the words, so you're not actually saying the things, but you're projecting to them your irritation, condescension, anger, all of it, you're emotionally antagonizing these patients and it needs to stop. That's not saying you need to be Mr. Light, Fluffy. Oh, it's okay. It's fine. Like, yeah, there's some people who are belligerent and you need to draw a line in the sand and say, no, this is not okay. But you can do that without making it personal, without getting your ego wrapped up in it and turning it into a combat situation.
Man, I'll pull out my mom voice in a hot ass second and then it's literally like a switch. I'll
Yeah.
pull out that mom like switch on the mom voice and then
Hmm.
immediately be like, "So, are we to have a problem?" But I do want to say cuz I know we've talked about this when it comes to trauma, but I want to say it again in regards to this. Like we were talking about the burnout, the frustration, "Oh, I've gotten 4 calls after midnight, I'm mad, I'm angry, whatever." Cuz Daniel and I actually had this conversation. I got my shit kicked yesterday. But at the same time, it could have been a lot worse than it was. Now, two things can be the same at or
Two
can
things can be true
excuse
at
me.
once. Yeah.
Two things can be true at the same time. My shift sucked. I got my shit kicked in. But I guarantee you there was somebody else in the county or a bunch of somebody else's in the county that got their shit kicked harder.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that I can't be tired, can't be
Hmm.
irritable. I mean, I wasn't irritable to other people, but like I
Yeah.
text Daniel, I was like internally, I'm so fucking pissy.
Yeah. It's
I
fine.
was wasn't mean when I mean,
No, you weren't. You weren't.
I was irritable that you kept forcing me
But well,
to go to sleep, but that's beside the point.
you
So,
benefited from it.
shut up. So, 2 things can be true at the same time. You can have a rough shift. You can be pissed that you've run 4 calls after midnight. But keep in mind, your shift might be better than literally anybody in the service, in the state, in the county, in the world, whatever. You could probably find somebody that has had it worse
Hmm.
some way or another. So, trauma comparing or even burnout comparing, victim mentality, pick a fucking word at this point. You can be angry, be hurt, whatever, but whether it's going to therapy, having healthy coping mechanisms, go cuddle a kitty or a puppy, whatever floats your boat. Um, Trying to figure yourself out and helping with that emotional regulation and dealing with the God, cognitive
It's been a
dissonance.
long week.
It has. Um, is gonna help. It's gonna help because
Yeah.
making the burnout and the I had such a shitty shift yesterday. You're gonna piss off some other coworkers that got their shit kicked in harder than you, and then it's gonna turn into a dick measuring contest, which is
Yeah.
then gonna perpetuate the pissiness.
Yeah.
Just we need to stop doing it. There's a way to have a conversation and be like, God, I got my shit kicked in, but I'm so sorry that y'all had a rough night. Like it can
Hmm.
all suck at the same time.
Well, and in our current work environments, it's I don't hear this said to me so much. It's brought up periodically, and not in a spiteful way, but you know, since you and I don't have to transport as much anymore, especially not on my rotation, because thankfully I have other paramedics nearby. um, but there's kind of the like, well, it's easy for you to be okay with it because you don't have to transport. Like, you're not having to be with this patient for the rest of the time. And I hear that, but I've also done my time. And I don't mean that in a like, look at me, but like I've had years, years of shifts where even my white cloud was getting my fucking teeth kicked in.
Mhm.
Like you can go find another shoulder to cry on if you're going to go that route, if you're going to go that avenue, because no one cares. Because chances are, if I haven't had it worse, I know people who have had it worse, and it's
Mhm.
not trauma comparing. I'm sorry, if you consider writing a fuck ton of calls and shift trauma, you need some help. Sorry, just volume, not talking about quality of calls, just volume.
Yeah.
If that's a traumatic experience for you, then you kind of sound like these Starbucks baristas that are crying about working an 8-hour shift. Like I really don't care. But have some perspective. Be able to look outside of your own experience and say, "You know what? Yeah, I don't like the situation I'm in right now. But I've experienced worse, and I know there's a lot of people who are or have experienced worse, and they're just fine." And they're okay. And they went home at the end of shift and crawled in their bed and slept. So we need to check our attitudes with some perspective and not comparing in a like dick measuring way, but comparing in the sense of, you know what? Hey, cool. Like, you've had a shitty night. I'm sorry, bro. Like, have a good one. Hope it gets better for you.
Mhm.
And carry on with your day. It's fine. It'll all be fine. So, anything else we want to add in here? I feel like we're off to a pretty good start for the year. If you learned something, good. Tell your friends about it. If you were offended, good. You probably needed to be. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye bye.